Welcome to The Big Picture. I'm Phil Arno. You, the viewer, are you a bad person? Has anybody ever directly asked you that question? Well, I don't really have to ask because I'm given that answer every day. Let's go over how bad you really are. If you think that a country should have and control borders, then you're pretty heartless, maybe even a bigot. If you own a business, maybe someday you'd like to work for yourself. Maybe you see some financial independence in your kids' future. Maybe they can be entrepreneurs, and logically then, if you think that businesses should be concerned about making a profit, then you're definitely bad, might I say, greedy. And how about healthcare? If you think that being healthy is a right and should have been written into the Constitution, then okay. Those rotten slave-owning founding fathers just screwed up one more thing. But if you think that health care is something that you should decide on for yourself, choosing your plan and your doctor, your lifestyle, well, then you just don't understand that bad things happen to good people, and we, the government, should step in and manage and decide who gets coverage and what coverage they get. It's only fair. As long as you're young enough and the expense is justified, you're going to get free care because it's a right. Don't agree? Heartless. And then there's wealth, money. If you think that just because there's a rich person who lives down the street, that doesn't mean it made you poor, then you're just kind of dumb. Of course, that rich SOB must have somehow gotten money that otherwise you would have. I don't know how, but I do know that it's unfair that some people have more than me and you. And then there's patriotism. If you're proud to be an American, well, how misinformed can you get? Look at Cuba. Michael Moore says it's a much better place than America in so many ways. And Moore and Sean Penn and Noam Chomsky and Jesse Jackson, they also loved Venezuela. They thought it was a lot more fair than America could ever be until, well, they're not saying too much lately, but I'm sure they're still pleased. The rest of us, well, we're just not as smart as those guys. So you get the picture. Now, I can't be the judge all by myself. You see, I'm a very bad person. I'm a misinformed patriot. That's part of the problem. I'm not part of the solution. You see, as much as I hear I'm a bad person, I resist. I won't change my evil ways. I need help. So with me here on The Big Picture today, to help me reform, is my friend Vic Martucci of Masiello, Martucci, Calabrese and Associates. Dr. Vic?
Well, I'll do my
help
best.
Me. I need to be a better person.
I don't know if you can be helped, but I'll do my best.
Well, we get that message all the time. I mean, I recently saw the first couple of debates of the Democrat presidential hopefuls, and they attacked profits. They attacked the healthcare system that we have, which is unfair, and they attacked the border controls that we have. Everything that used to make sense doesn't make sense anymore. Now, I know I'm a bad person, but I just can't quite wrap my mind around the whole thing. And what are we supposed to believe?
Well, unfortunately, and I don't think this is good for our politics or our country, we live in an era now where elections are base elections. It used to be, if you recall, that when a candidate ran for president, on the Democrat side, they tacked to the left, and on the Republican side, they tacked to the right during the primaries, because that tends to be who comes out and votes in primaries, the conservatives on the Republican side, liberals on the Democrat side, and then they fight for the middle ground in the general election. They come back to the middle. Well, that doesn't happen anymore. And the base of each party is becoming more and more extreme. It used to be that if you agreed with a candidate on most of the issues, you were comfortable supporting them. Now there's this litmus test where you have to be 100% pure. And it exists on both sides, on the left and on the right. And compromise has become a dirty word. And so because we have these base elections, this is what you're seeing in the Democrat primary today, where they're fighting over each other to see who can present more extreme left-wing positions, because that's what their political base wants to hear. And then the end result of that, in my opinion, is you see a declining voter participation in general elections. The vast middle in this country has checked out politically. They're turned off by the type of politics that we're practicing in this country. They don't feel like they have a voice and that their vote matters, so they stay home. So consequently, elections become base elections. You appeal to your base, and you appeal to them hard so that you can get them to come out and vote. And that's how elections are determined today. And I don't know that that's good for our country.
Well, you know, there was a Gallup poll out that basically said that 40% of Americans identify themselves as conservative. And I think it was 35% say that they're moderate. And in that particular poll, 21% said that they're liberal. And this is up basically from a poll in the 1990s. You know, the liberals were 17%, now they're up to 21%. And the conservatives were 43%, now they're down to 40%.
Right.
But still, the vast majority are either conservative or moderate. And the appeal to the liberals, which are very, very small percentage comparatively, is that a winning strategy in the long run? And it's not just the politicians, it's the media. I mean, they're appealing to a small portion of the population, and I don't know how that equates to good thing.
There's two issues there. First, in terms of is it a smart electoral strategy, smart election strategy. I think that in the more recent elections, you'll see that it is smart strategy, because the voter turnout is down, and the people that are coming out to vote in general elections tend to be on the extremes of the political spectrum. And so elections, as they always have been, are based on turnout. Which side can get their vote out on election day? And if you're not appealing to your base in a very strong way, you're less likely to be able to get your vote out on election day, and so you just won't have the numbers to win. And that's been a trend over decades in this country, and it's more prevalent today than in all the years that I've been involved in politics. You know, I've talked to people that are active in the Republican Party, for example, and you know, I express my concern about Donald Trump and his style. I've got a real problem with Donald Trump's style. And the answer I get from political practitioners, campaign strategists, is these are base elections today. And Donald Trump's style wins on the Republican side. And that's why we support him. And so the same is true on the other side. The more outrageous and the more extreme the views, the more likely they are to turn their party's base out on election day. And again, I don't think that's good for our politics.
It seems, though, that when you talk about the message on one side, it's a negative message. It's how bad the policies at the border are, how bad our health care is, how bad, and there's never an optimistic tone. Well, here, and it's not just the politicians, it's the media as well. There's a video I want to bring up. It just came out. The New York Times put a commentary out. I don't know whether you saw it or not.
The one where we're not a great country,
yeah,
we're just
it's America,
okay?
Yeah, it's America, a great country. Can we pull up part of that video and see what they said?
So what, besides our economy and military, are we actually number one in? Turns out, a lot of things. Civilian gun ownership, mass shootings, TV watching, prescription drug abuse, prison population. Oh, and almost number one on environmental damage, edged out by China. It's gotten to a point where I think there are specific times and places where you can confuse America for a developing country, as elections are tampered with, water can't be drunk from taps, citizens don't trust uniformed officers, infrastructure is crumbling, and where a dual system is emerging when public services are for sale for the highest bidder. You see this in countries like Pakistan or Nigeria, where the rich don't worry about the sad state of electricity or police because, well, they have generators and private security. When health, education, and safety are increasingly privatized or driven by privilege, the truth is, how great America is really depends on how rich you are. So as we gear up for another election season where politicians tell us America is great, or that it isn't, and then proceed to make it worse, let's try a more truthful approach. America may once have been the greatest, but today, America, we're just okay.
So we're like Nigeria or Pakistan, and I'm not sure I understand, but that's temperament.
What's interesting about that video is, and you know, the New York Times has a long history of this. It'd be nice if they'd be consistent, because what was Donald Trump's campaign mantra? Make America great again. So when he suggested, coming off of 8 years of the Obama administration, that America needed to be made great again, that was a fallacy. But now today, somehow in 3 short years, America is just okay. And again, this is just it's the type of cherry picking and parsing of words and use of semantics that political practitioners and the press use all the time, and we never really get to the truth. And I always tell people, there's no excuse today in this age of technology not to be educated. I always tell people, don't believe what you read in the newspaper or what you hear on television. Don't believe me and what my opinion is. You can go on the internet and you can call up the original documents. If you want to know what a bill actually says, read it. If you want to know what the Congressional Budget Office's opinion or score is on a particular bill, don't take the New York Times word for it, because they're not going to tell you everything that's in that document. Read it for yourself.
Well, that's great advice. A lot of people who work hard and have the kids to take to school or have to take care of the house and do the chores and take the garbage out and pay the bills, sometimes they don't have time to educate themselves in that respect.
But isn't that our responsibility as citizens?
It's one of the most important things we do.
Otherwise, how could you be an informed voter?
Exactly. Well, we're going to be coming back shortly, and we'll get a little bit more local in the next segment, but there's lots to talk about, and it's very interesting. I don't know where we're going to go in the future, but we'll be talking about that right after this.